welcome back to Makeready's second day and a full morning of studio visits, followed by a workshop in a little bit and office hours at the end of the day. It is my pleasure now to introduce Ryan Smith of brickpress. brickpress is a publisher and offset printing studio that provides a platform for Canadian and international artists. Ryan is a Vancouver-based artist and offset press operator and is the co-founder of brickpress. So Smith's practice is informed through a 7-year ongoing mentorship with senior offset press operator, Robert Denholm. And I'm sure, I'm not gonna read through the whole thing, but I'm sure Ryan will have plenty to say about that. So without further ado, it's all yours, Ryan.
Hi, everyone. Just want to do a quick check and make sure that you can see me and hear me. Awesome. Okay, I'm getting the nod of approval. Yeah, thank you for the introduction and just a hello to everyone else in the online realm. As mentioned, my name is Ryan Smith, and I'm the co-founder of brickpress, along with my partner in publishing and my spouse, Kellen Cardall. First, I just want to say a quick thanks to Jamie and Tom for putting together this event and for inviting us to speak, and also to those who are participating, and to the rest of the team of the Seattle Art Book Fair and the Makeready 2021 event. I'm sure there's lots of moving pieces, and it looks awesome. So I'm just excited to be here and looking forward to chatting for a little bit. And so I'm going to do a quick intro brief about who we are and what we do and where I'm talking to you from before we get into the theme of the day of or weekend of before a book. So I've got some before a book stories to tell, but yeah, quickly before that, I'll kind of just give you a little tour of the studio. I'm doing this on my phone right now. I was doing internet checks all morning, like the speed tests on my laptop and then on my phone, and it seems my my wireless is my data is getting like way better download and upload speed. So hopefully that works really well. I've got a backup plan just in case. Anyway, so little about us. We are, we're a Vancouver-based publisher. We've been operating since 2012, and it all started out of a personal practice of making zines, and then eventually collecting equipment to make our own zines, and sooner or later this idea of collaboration and being able to produce at a bit higher of a level sort of forced us to think we're kind of faking it almost into like creating an insignia to work under, to make it seem more legit. Anyways, this is like very much a hobby for us. We both work full-time outside of publishing. We are fully independent, fully self-funded. We just do this in our free time for fun. And it's a total passion project, so to speak. And yeah, I'll give you guys a quick tour of our studio. So I'm gonna go mobile here and do a little flipperoo. Let's take a peek here. So, oh, here we go. We're in our studio now, and we're located in Vancouver's downtown east side, and we are taking over a little retail space. So our studio is about 300 square feet. It's very small. I mean, it's actually not very small. It's bigger than some of the other studios we've been in, but so just to give you like a tour of what we've got going on, we've got our one of our working tables and our flat file storage. And then moving over in the corner there, we've got, I'm looking at the comments and I'm like, in the corner, we've got our trusty HP LaserJet duplex printer, which is actually one of our favorite printing machines to use. It's monochromatic black and white, but it does such a great job, and it's very fast and super economical. And I think, we've always been kind of a low barriers publisher. So that thing right there is awesome. And there we've got our plate maker. Here we've got our offset press. In the back corner, we've got our guillotine paper cutter and a couple binding and finishing machines, some paper folders, a little bit of shelving. Our press is a 2-color, or it's actually a 1-color printing press, but it's got an aftermarket swing-in T-head that allows to print 2 colors on the same blanket. So this is considered a small press, and it's kind of like on the larger end of small presses. We bought this back in 2014 after using risographs for many years, and kind of, came to a crossroads where it was like, do we store risographs and keep them for parts and keep trying to get them up and running, or do we devote our space and time to the offset press, which is what we ended up doing. And then we've got kind of our other work table. Here's our, we've got some shelving units, a lot of ink. This is a recent acquisition of, I can't remember, Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, but this is like a commercial print shop from, I think, Washington, actually, that's got like custom mixed Pantone colors, more than we could ever use in our lifetime of printing, but it's pretty special to have them. Then down there, we've got more machines. Here we've got more machines and more machines. You see my makeshift studio or Zoom setup that we've got going on. But we've got things like, here, I'll flip this back around to me and kind of talk. But basically, we have everything. Oh gosh, what did I do? Oh no, what did I do? Here, I'm back. I'm back. Okay. So essentially, we have everything that's necessary to make a book from start to finish. So everything happens. And the whole idea with that is that we like the idea of books being a little bit more accessible. And by doing everything ourselves, we don't have to hit the high minimums of using outside vendors. We can do smaller run editions, not charge for our time, and hopefully make books that are a little bit more cost effective and accessible. And so when I say we do everything in-house, that is from like conceptualizing publication projects, realizing I'm not looking at the camera, to designing the publication, to doing the pre-press design, to doing the printing, to doing the binding, to doing the finishing, and then finally to do the marketing and distribution. And it's very, very small operation. It's just the two of us. We both have a 50% sort of, not even stake, just to say, like, we just make every decision together. We help each other do everything. We each kind of have our own strengths, I guess, where I'm working a bit more in the production end, and Kellen is working a little bit more in the digital end. But we do help each other, when it comes time to collate, like 50,000 sheets of paper, it's like we have a little pizza party and do our thing, wear rubber gloves so we don't get the grease on the paper, I guess. But anyway, so I'm gonna kind of stop there because I want to get into this before a book theme. It is pretty fun prompt to try and think of, and I wanted to do this a bit more discussion esque and like less of a presentation and more of a discussion, and very informal. I've got some photographs that I'll bring up and I'll share my screen and kind of walk around and show some stuff. But before a book is a really interesting topic, and it's one that I think differs for every publisher. And I think that even for the publishers themselves, before a book is often different before each book. They could be conceptualized in many different ways and may differ each time. Some things happen very organically, where 1 minute you're not doing anything, and the next minute you're like, oh, we're making a book and we've found someone to collaborate with, and this is excellent. And other times, you're sort of like wanting to see something happen, like, and actually I'll just get into it. Well, I'm going to talk about the book that that we are most recently have published, and this is actually a book I can show you here. It's called Companies Act by Anything Co. And you know, I'll give you a quick little flip, but just to give you an idea, it's a 365 book, a monograph of a Vancouver-based artist collective called Anything Co. And I'll get into more. I guess quickly I can explain who they are. They are a Vancouver-based collaborative duo that were active in the 60s and 70s, and they were part of the conceptual art movement in Canada, and kind of like the Fluxus movement in Canada, and they actually incorporated themselves as a business, and with that corporation, they interrogated corporate strategy through their use of conceptual photography, site-specific installation, and many things and more. One part of their practice that was interesting is that they published a lot of books as well, and this book that we reprinted is one of them. But to sort of get into this before book idea, this particular one, this one was like probably close to 7 years in the making. I think we first conceived this idea back in 2014 or 2015, and it took many years for it to materialize. And I'm not sure that I've done a great justice introducing Anything Co. But really, like, that could be its own hour-long discussion in itself. To really thoroughly explain their practice, which is, in my opinion, kind of unparalleled in terms of like collaborative duos and just like conceptual art practices too. That's like, you could, and I'm sure that I know that there are many people who have done PhDs. It's more of like a doctoral dissertation scope of like how long it would take to really unpack who Anything Co. is. So, but basically, I'm going to really focus on the book. And to I see a couple comments popping up, and I'll address them at the end, hopefully, or you could ask a question if you can remember to. But basically, the idea with this book is that I'm an admirer of Anything Co. I have been for a number of years, and basically, I found this book. I'd never heard about it before. I was always keen on looking for other books of theirs that were quite collectible. Not as a reseller, but just as a collector. Like, if you find, we have a great used bookstore called McLeod's, and every once in a while you'll find a rare artist book there. And a lot of people who come to Vancouver find special treasures, whether it's like a rare book that's worth, X amount of dollars, or something that just gives them a special connection. It's like you find this thing that gives you this personal experience. It's like there are, hundreds, if not thousands, of people that feel that way after buying a book from McLeod's. It's just a really special place. And I had come across this book and I'd never heard of it. And that was the Companies Act book. And the whole premise, and I would later go on to find that, in my opinion, I kind of think it's the most important book they ever published. But basically what it is the book itself was made as an artwork that was submitted to a art exhibit called Younger Canadian Artists at Kunsthal in Basel in 1978. The curator from Kunsthal Basel came to Vancouver and decided that, an oeuvre such as Anything Co.'s one work wouldn't suffice, and that a compendium of company ideas was the only way to showcase their work to the viewers of the exhibition in Switzerland. So there you go with Anything Co. What I can say really quickly is that they were far too concerned with making work than documenting it, they had a lot of documentation, but organizing it. So when you're looking at the documentation of their work, they had mountains and mountains and mountains of documentation and news clippings of everything that they did for their entire practice. And and what they did is they compiled that into this book. It's 365 pages. It's all single-sided. So that itself makes this book really burdensome. You know, there's only printing on one side of the sheet. And what that does is it turns a book that could be, you know, 1 inch into like 2.5 inches. And this physically weighs 4.5 pounds. And when you open it, it's 22 inches long. Like it's, you know, it's physically a difficult book to read. And I think that was kind of intentional. But basically, I sort of would go on to understand that there's a significant cultural value to this book, because Anything Co. is no longer a group, and you know it's just an unbelievably incredible documentation of this duo, and basically, so where this started, and I'm gonna flip again here, is this is actually, these are the original pages of the book. And you'll see here in the credit of the book, I'm gonna zoom in, it says copyright 1978. The material in the Anything Co. Limited book can be used by anyone, anytime, anywhere. Please let us know when you do this. Edition 500, 365 pages. So as a publisher, that sort of read like a little bit of a prompt. And you know, this use of language was really common in their work, where they sought to draw the viewer into their work and gave them instructions to do things that was like participatory and interactive artwork. A lot of it was, most of it was, or you know, much of it was. It made the viewer, you know, their artwork was framed in a way that the viewer was meant to, they were instructed to think about it, and it kind of made it a bit more of a dynamic artwork, I guess you could say. I'm not doing that justice, but anyways, the way that I saw that prompt was that, hey, as the person who owns this book, what I would like to do is remake it, because at the time I had looked, and that book was only available to view in the reference libraries of SFU and UBC, and you couldn't even sign the book out. You had to look at it in the library. And on the used market, I think it was costing about $800 or something. So it's completely inaccessible. And it's, you know, even just a quick story is that, you know, I found that one of, you know, there were curators in Vancouver who have spent significant amounts of time in their life dedicated to art from Vancouver from around that period, who had never heard of the Big Blue Book, which is the nickname of that book. And you know, I that was sort of more of a push to want to remake that. So I reached out to Ingrid Baxter. Whoa, I can't believe I didn't say that. Anything Co. was run by Ingrid Baxter and Ian Baxter. They were married and made the most amazing artwork together. And anyways, I reached out to them, you know, many years later, and I said, hey, do you remember that book from 1978? Well, in the copyright, you said that you know, anyone can do anything with this book, and what I'd like to do is tear my original copy apart, scan every page, and make offset plates off of those pages, and make a facsimile of your book, and make a full edition of it. And you know, typically doing facsimiles of rare books can, you know, you can encounter things like dealing with estates of artists and you know, galleries who represent them, and you can meet a lot of roadblocks, have to pay a lot of licensing and things like this. It can be very difficult, where in this particular case, I literally just, you know, got the thumbs up and a very sort of like excited reaction from them both, and off I went. So really quickly, I'm going to share a video to show that. So I did this disassembly process, and that is literally before the book. Because no artwork or no plates existed for this book, the only way that we could see to do this was to take it apart and scan it. And the book was already kind of falling apart. And, you know, the book scanning tables, it would have been really burdensome and difficult to actually keep the book in good condition while scanning it. And we kind of like the idea of making a bit of a performance out of the project. So I have this time-lapse video I'm going to share right now. So I'm going to start broadcast. Here we go. And we are sharing my screen and audio is on. So I'm going to open up my drive here and hope that this all works out well. And so this is a video, a really quick video. It's about 1 minute. So I'm not going to talk really. I'll just sort of let it go. Well, this was done at Emily Carr University in the Libby Leschgold Gallery. Where it happened really didn't have much relevance to the project itself. It was just that the floor space was really big. And so what I did was, in a kind of in a performative way, I individually tore all the 365 pages out and kind of basically did it as a conceptual way to organize them. And even this action in itself was one of many ways that I was able to do something with the book, responding to that copyright of theirs. So you can kind of get a scope to see what that process was like, and that was taking apart the cover and things like this. So I will, and now I've got like kind of an exploded view of that. So it really did. It took up quite a large floor space. And this is kind of funny too. This almost responded to a bit of a story from Ian Baxter, where he talked about on the phone with me about collating this book from the printer. So having an edition of 500 plus overage at 365 pages and collating it by hand. So it's over, I think it's nearly 200,000 sheets, if I am remembering correctly. I'm not good at quick math, but you know, and he said if I wanted a good workout, to rent a warehouse in North Van and collate the book by myself. And you know, so by taking the book apart, I was kind of able to visualize that same, you know, that same action that took place back in 1978. So here's a photograph of the original copy. And so what I ended up doing was I did what I term a reinterpreted facsimile. You know, a real facsimile would have, you know, edited everything to look as if it came right off the press in 1978. So no cracks in the covers and bright colored ink and so on and so forth, which wasn't really, I don't think that really fit the, just a second here. I don't really think that fit the copyright and what they're responding to. I think that, you know, something a little bit different would maybe be a bit closer to what they were looking for. Sorry, I just want to look at my time here. Which I can't see it. I'm not gonna watch. Just give me a thumbs up when I can. But I guess oh, thank you so much. So after that disassembly process, that led to the next process, which was just scanning, and that was Kellen's undertaking, which was just massive. So the pages of the book, just to give you an idea, was like this, you know. So originally the book had, you know, white pages with black ink, and of course over these many years that white paper has yellowed, and so when you scan the pages, all that yellow ink, when you desaturate it and convert it to black and white, actually just reads as black. So it's like it's almost like a full sheet of black ink, or not as black but as gray. So what was required was to like edit every single individual page, and it had to be separately. There's no way to do it in a batch because some pages had text, some pages had photographs, some had both, some had coffee stains, some had creases. It was a very individual, one at a time thing, and the idea was to keep the sort of marks that appeared over time, but also remove all of the yellowed background to make it a white sheet of paper again. And with that, like that's sort of like the bulk of how that book came to be. And you know, we had a lot of fun with it. We tried to do as much actions responding to the copyright as we could, and keeping in mind who Anything Co were and what type of work they made. It made it a very fun project, and I can even like show a couple things here that I think is interesting. And this is more in the realm of during the printing process, but so look here really quickly and go to our Instagram. We tried to do these things like we tried to do these things that responded to Anything Co. So for instance, here we've got a video, and we did this series called the Process series. So here was a really, foundational work of theirs called You Are Now in an Anything Co landscape. And these were signs posted in the sides of highways in a couple different areas in Canada and the USA. And the premise of it is that the viewer, was now in an Anything Co landscape. So anything from the sign to the horizon line was itself an Anything Co landscape. So really the landscape was an artwork, and you could kind of almost liken that to Marcel Duchamp's Ready-Made or something like this, is that, if something is instructed to be an artwork, and the viewers are told that, I guess it kind of is. But with us, we thought it was funny where when we take this video of it, it's printing a Anything Co landscape. So it's kind of like, I don't know what you'd say, but here's another interesting one. And this is before a book too. I should have had the sound on for these, but this is a bindery expert who assisted with a portion of the production process, and for a 365-page book, they had to collate it 26 pages at a time, and like many printing shops, they use automated collating machines, but every once in a while, doing things by hand is still preferred. So with this one, I think it was maybe like 186,000 sheets of collating, and as you can see here, they're quite fast and very efficient. But another part, it's like the Companies Act Process series is collating an Anything Co book. So we really tried to make the process itself a project in itself, if that makes sense. I guess lastly, coming more to the administrative end of things was we worked really hard to make sure that we could promote that book and give it the right platform, and we were thankful and lucky to have gotten a distribution deal to get that book as far, give it a little bit more reach, which was really nice. So kind of in that same realm, before we got right into production, it was making sure that, we've got a big shelf full of them here, but there are a number of them elsewhere that are able to reach people that we aren't able to reach. So that was kind of another more like administrative and of before the book topic was, how are we able to get these to more people? So I guess that was it. I think I'm done. What time are we at here?
It's a little after 1:30, so I think if
maybe. I mean, that might be a little early. I have a couple other things I could show really quickly. I mean, I've got, sorry, I might have jumped the gun on that a little bit.
Oh, no, that's I think if there are any questions, folks can add them to the chat or jump in with an audio question too.
Cool. Yeah, I think like, oh gosh, what did I do? I'm not sharing my screen anymore. I wanted to, show my, oh goodness, I'm all over the place here. Yeah, just a couple little tidbits like we've got. So for instance, like going back to that idea of before the book, if you saw those earlier pictures of the cover, finding the way to edit it properly to keep those markings was really important to us. So here are like some unbound covers, and you can see things like the creases from the page tears and just keeping all those characteristics. And here we've got just a black and white test to sort of get an idea, like, okay, if it looks good out of this large format printer from Staples in black and white, then I think we're ready to send it off to an offset press to be produced in multiples. And I've got just quite a lot of ephemera from the project itself, like a lot of kind of misfeeds, which I've got drawers and drawers of them. Just like these are all of the I kept all of the offset printing plates from the project itself. So not really before book, but during the process we did all of the printing in-house here. So it was 365 plates times 500, and for a little press it was pretty, we printed it only one plate at a time, so it was a considerable portion of our summer was spent producing this book. But yeah, I saw maybe a couple questions, so I'll start looking at those now. And
yeah, I think Robert had a question earlier, and I was curious about this too, of whether maybe you mentioned this, whether the duo, is it Ian and Ingrid, are they still around? Are they still active? Have you been in touch with them?
Yeah, I'm in touch with both of them very often, actually. We're making another book of theirs in
wow,
in where they made another book called The Portfolio of Piles, which is an excellent artist book, which was a brown portfolio that was filled with loose leaf pages of photographs of piles. And the idea with it is that the artworks themselves, or the piles themselves, were considered artworks. And in the beginning of the book, there was an address list of where each pile was. So the public or the viewer or the reader could go try and find the piles. But then at the very bottom, there's a disclaimer that says, due to the nature of piles, we cannot guarantee that they still exist, or so on and so forth. But that's, we are there. That is something we're hopeful of, because again, like the Companies Act book, it's inaccessible, and we'd love to, oh goodness. Yeah, we'd really like that book to be accessible as well. Like I think it's like the Companies Act book, it's something that we feel has some cultural value, especially in terms of, you know, the proximity to where we are in Vancouver. It's very, that Companies Act book especially is like a kind of, I would say is definitely a part of Vancouver's canon in terms of conceptual art. So yeah, making them accessible for people to own at an affordable cost is something that is pretty cool. But yeah, Ian Baxter practices art still, and is he's living in Ontario, and they're no longer together. They've been separated for quite some time. Actually, the book in 1978 was made right around the time that they separated, and Anything Co. Disbanded, making that book quite special too. But I was able to reach out to them both separately, and since I've become like well acquainted, and I would say, you know, we're buds. Like I speak. Ingrid Baxter lives here in British Columbia, and her daughter actually own a kayak shop in Deep Cove. So after Anything Co. disbanded, Ian continued to make art, and Ingrid, I think you could say, like, she's always been a very creative person and very intelligent and very yeah, I think just very intellectual, and the way that she talks about Anything Co. and making art and conceptualizing these ideas is really special. So you know, she did something a bit different, and continued on with yeah, she started a business, and a very good one at that. They I believe the kayak shop has been open for like over 30 years or something like this. And yeah, sorry, that was a long answer to a short question. Maybe I can look for this chat and see if I see any other questions. This begs a process book. This collection. Okay, so I'm just gonna go. Okay, good. Here's a question. That is fine. Let's go corner rounder. Yeah. Where/how are the archives of this duo saved? Are they still active? That's an interesting question. There are many museums in Canada that have Anything Co. collections. As far as I know, the Vancouver Art Gallery has a significant collection of maybe 30 or so works. I would imagine that the AGO, the Art Gallery of Ontario, has a very significant collection. Likely, yeah, I definitely know that in places like the Canada Council Art Bank has a lot of their work as well. And then Ian has a lot of the Anything Co. archives as well. And so does, although not nearly as much, Ingrid does have works that she kept as well. Yeah, I mean, it's a topic that I could talk about for a really long time. I actually, this whole book came out of my master's thesis from Emily Carr University. So the long and the short of that is around the time that I joined a master grad school, that book sort of came to life, and I knew that both were significant undertakings, and I didn't really want one to take from the other. So I had to figure out a way to kind of bring the two together. And that led to my thesis being called Reinterpreted Facsimile, Anything Co. and Companies Act 2020. So it sort of argued that, you know, the traditional facsimile from historically significant facsimile makers in Austria They say a facsimile is this, whereas I say there's nothing wrong with that, but I would argue that a reinterpreted facsimile that shows the the wears of time makes a new conceptual work in itself, and it's a very narrow thesis that in at least this very narrow way in this one book, the reinterpreted facsimile is a useful tool, and I graduated with it, so that is good. But and the long and the short of that is that I'm really kind of I as I said earlier, to really unpack who Anything Co. were is more in the scope of a doctoral dissertation, but at the same time to adequately publish this book and write a grad school thesis on it, I did spend a significant period of time researching who Ian Baxter was and who Ingrid Baxter was, and who yes, Robert, it is. I can put it in the chat, and it's searchable online. Yeah, so I spent a significant amount of time speaking with Ian and Ingrid personally, and then also listening to a lot of lectures and oh, that's a good question, Hart. You would think that I would have felt, I knew that when I was taking that book apart, I was destroying a valuable object, but at the same time, it was significant in a sense that, tearing it apart to create a new was almost like a freeing experience. Like, to make something new, you've got to destroy something old. And so that's all I was really thinking about it. And the truth is I had carried that book around since 2012, exhibited it in show and tell libraries and artist book libraries, and lend it to people. And it had become this really, really special object of mine. And even when I bought it, it was very expensive. It was $300. It's, I mean, not to say that, anyways, it was like, I definitely had an attachment to it, but I think taking it apart was significant for sure. And I've still kept it. I've got it still, but it's just in loose pages. And Robert, I saw that you found that thesis there. If you're interested, feel free to read it. I'm really not getting as deep into it, but there's a lot of important things to say about collaborative practices. And I write about this in my thesis, but there were issues of inequality on Ingrid Baxter's end. And, I wrote a chapter about that. And I definitely think that, this is just my opinion, but I think that Anything Co. perhaps maybe not did a disservice to itself, but I think that, and this is a really tough one because separations are really personal, and I would, of course, never want to pry to say, but I think that the result of it was that one person was left with an unequal share, and also was given less credit, and that even was in the middle of Anything Co. was that, and much like many parts of the world, is that there is gender inequality and all types of inequality that exist in the world, and I know for a fact through my research that Ingrid Baxter suffered from that a lot, and I think that was very unfair, and I tried to do that justice as well in my research, and even in the reproduction of the book. Just to sort of end off on a story, was that there were a lot of times in news clippings that reporters would write things like, Ian Baxter and his beautiful blonde wife spoke at NSCAD University today, and together they started the Anything company and had, children. And what I did was I read about these articles in other academic research papers. And, when I was going through the Companies Act book in preparation to remake the book, I would come across the news clipping that was from the, I saw the reference in a paper, and I said, hey, well, you know what? I'm just going to take a thumbtack and I'm going to scratch Beautiful Blonde White out of that page. So in the new whole edition of 500 copies, at least that page reads, Ian Baxter and his wife, Ingrid Baxter, spoke in NASCAD today, and they created the Anything Co. and have children. It was just to sort of like try and reshape history in a way that wasn't so sexist. And I did that in a couple instances in that book where and that I can't even really pat myself on the back because it was such a small gesture. Like I wish that I could have done more, and I write a little bit more in my thesis about like kind of action-based ideas and also my personal opinion on that. And it's not tough. My opinion is that inequality sucks, and I work in a collaborative, much like others do, work in collaborative projects, and I think that it's important to make decisions together and to give equal credit and all of these things. And so, but at the same time, finding a way to work with each of them on separate terms and in a way that was I was able to remake the book so that others could see it, because I still think it's significant for people who are interested that they have the book. Despite the the standing of them currently, but Ian is yeah, I don't know. Anyways, getting a little too into it there, but I hope that have I missed any questions?
There was a question earlier, which is probably a question for an entire session about how an offset press works.
Oh yeah.
Maybe talk briefly about what drew you to offset printing. How did you get into this?
Yeah. What time are we at right now?
Maybe 5 minutes or so.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. I'm just trying to be conscious of the time, but yeah. Very quickly, paperback novels from the 60s and 70s, like so mass market paperback novels that at the time would have costed $1 or $2. Typically using like manila recycled paper, so yellowed, very pulpy smelling paper, that was black ink on that paper, and then maybe the cover was 2 colors, and it was like orange and green and a black and white photo. But that orange and green were just so vivid and so rich. And we're talking about a book that's over 40 years old, and that that vividness and that deepness and color was still there, and that really came from oil-based pigmented offset ink that is becomes a part of the paper. So I really could get into this for a long time because I've spent a significant amount of the last 7 years working. I work, as you said, I work at a commercial print shop under a mentor who's a friend now, and I have since 2014, and that's how I learned how to use an offset press. And that was it. Like I've collected all of these types of machines off of Craigslist, and really loved Risographs. I still love them. I think that they are the most intuitive and user-friendly and dynamic machines. And I love Xeroxes too. Like one of my favorite books that I'm looking at right now is called Copy Art. And it's like it came from the era of when the Xerox was invented. And it was literally like, I think it had to be one of the first books that artists made talking about how they could reimagine an office machine and use it for artistic applications. And yeah, Risographs was kind of a very special thing to me. Drum transitions. Those are, I have lots of tips about drum transitions and all sorts of stuff. And that was it though. I just knew that with oil-based Pantone ink, you could get these vivid colors. You could mix them all by hand. There's metallics, there's fluorescents. They stand the test of time. They, the machine that we have, I didn't know how to use it when we bought it. We just bought it. We bought a plate maker. We bought the press. We had no clue that that you could only print one page at a time, or that you could only print one plate at a time. And that after press time, you have to put sheets of paper that are the same size as the plates that absorb wet ink, and you spray solvents into the rollers. And we had no idea that washing a press was washing a press. And we learned how to use it from YouTube. And then I got a job as an assistant at a print shop. And I think that was just sort of I think I did the math, and we could print 1 million sheets of paper for $7,000. And a tin of offset ink, like a kilogram of ink, is like $30. And the offset press runs off of 120. It just plugs into a wall. It is filled with springs and chains, and it has an air compressor and a regular motor. A lot of mechanics, including myself, can service it. It's just a workhorse, and it prints 5,000 sheets an hour. When you have a $30 tin of ink and you're thinking about like 9-point text, if you're just printing 9-point text, like 1 kilogram of ink could probably print 100,000 sheets of paper, if not more. It's like a very economical way of printing to a certain extent. It's better for large editions. Once you've got the press set up, it's better to print 1,000 things than 100 things. And actually, like the name of this event, Makeready, we've got Makeready sheets all over the place. So it's like, reusing, to print 100 great things, I've got to use about 200 recycled sheets of paper to get the ink smooth and running, and all the densities, and the chemistries ideally set, like basically doing like 10 things perfectly all at the same time to make it look good. But yeah, I think that I'm just passionate about all types of printing. And like I said at the very beginning, still to this day, my very favorite printer in the world, next to the offset press, is the HP LaserJet 4350 duplexer unit, and it prints 60 pages a minute. It costs $60 for a high yield toner cartridge, and even when it's out, you just shake it and you get another 300 sheets. It's like, in terms of low barrier publishing, that's the machine. I like it all, but I'm sure that I've gone over my time here, and I just want to say thanks everyone, and I hope that
No, that's just perfect. And you're absolutely right about make-ready sheets coming off offset press, like where you get all sorts of interesting things printing on top of each other too. It was totally inspiration for us thinking about all this.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I also have to say, I've never heard anybody make owning an offset press sound so accessible. Like, you can do it at home. Just get the theory off Craigslist and a couple drums, and you're set.
Totally. Yeah.
So we really appreciate you contributing this past hour. It's been awesome to hear about everything you've done. I should say, since we are coming up on 2, that if anybody in this Zoom is participating in the workshop that Philip and New Documents is hosting at 2 o'clock, it's actually a separate Zoom link. So you should have an email with a different Zoom link. So you'll have to end this meeting and then jump over to that one, which is going to start in a few minutes. So Ryan, thank you again so much.
Thank you all.
Hopefully see you at Vancouver Art Book Fair.
Yeah.
That is able to come together. It's also an incredible event. So.
Totally. Yeah. Likewise, wishing everyone, safety and health and all those things. And also fun.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
All right.